Good morning. This is Michael Leon with Rappaport. I am here with DC restaurateur Andy Shallal. We are catching up on what he is doing in the age of COVID. Those who are not familiar, tell our audience a little bit about yourself and your role in the DC restaurant world.
Sure. I'm a lifelong resident here in DC, and I've had several businesses, and now I am running one type of business called Busboys and Poets, which is a group of restaurants and gathering spaces here in the Washington DMV area, and we have 7 locations and ready to open maybe 2 more.
Fantastic. And where will those next 2 be? Do you know yet?
Well, we have one that we are looking at in Baltimore, and one that we're looking at in Columbia, Maryland.
Yeah, fantastic.
Those projects are now kind of on hold a little bit just because of what's going on in the world around us, and we hope that soon enough we'll be able to move forward.
Right. Well, one of the things that we've been talking to folks about is how they're responding to this crisis. So I want to give you the floor to talk about what you're doing, to work with folks in the community as we go through this sort of unprecedented time.
Well, at first it comes as a shock. We all were surprised by this. It made it a little bit, difficult for us to be able to pivot and adjust quickly. But, restaurants and business people, entrepreneurs, that's what we do. We adjust and pivot and change quickly and rapidly, and oftentimes, in unexpected ways. And what we learn is that once you embrace the change, once you start moving in that direction, you start to adjust and redefine your mission, redefine your goal, redefine your business plan, and come out, okay. And I think that's what we've been doing. So we've been serving meals throughout the city for not only for frontline workers but for our employees as well. And we, of course, are doing carryout for customers that want to order carryout and delivery. We've been doing also this thing called Paint the Storefronts, where we've hired artists, friends of ours, and people we know, people we worked with in the past, to be able to go around the city and paint beautiful, inspiring messages on storefronts that have been closed due to the coronavirus pandemic. So it's been really exciting. We've done over 80 storefronts so far, and we have a backlog of many dozens that we still have to do, but we have artists all over the city doing this amazing work. They're having a great time. They're getting paid for it, and we're enjoying the beauty and inspiration they're bringing to us.
Oh, I love it. I mean, supporting local artists is a good thing no matter what's going on in the world.
Exactly.
So
Yep.
That's awesome. How has the takeout and curbside performed? Was it an easy transition for you? I know that I think you already offered that before this, but just how has it been going so far?
We have, just like you mentioned, Michael. We've had carry out throughout, so it's not something new to us. So we were ready for it in a sense, and we've refined it. We've have new offerings. We have these box lunches for kids that are staying home from school that are really reasonably priced, that come with a nice healthy sandwich, some chips or something like that, and an apple and a cookie and things like that. So that parents can easily just order for their children, something quick that they can get that is also reasonable and easy to, for children to enjoy. We've also offered many different types of specials on different days. We have family meals where we have, larger portions of things that you can order for a family of 4 or 6 or 8 or whatever. This is also the month of Ramadan, so a lot of people, Muslims, are fasting now. So we have a fast style dinner as well, where people can order a dinner that includes soup and a really nice entree and some dates and other things that people will enjoy with their meal. And so those are the things that we've learned to adjust, and we keep changing and adjusting according to what our customers are telling us and what we can provide. And it's been actually pretty good. We've seen an increase, almost a double from what we normally sell for our
Wow.
carryout. And we're hoping to triple that actually as we move forward and improve our systems.
Cool. And in that same vein, how are you guys approaching this projected reopen? I know it's a moving target. No one really knows when it's going to happen, but are you looking at reducing capacity? How does your staff feel about that? Masks. I mean, how do you see this sort of the next phase of this playing out as people are able to come back?
Well, I was fortunate to be asked by the mayor to be part of her reopening DC task force. So I'm on the restaurant subcommittee, which includes myself, Jose Andres, Kathy Hollinger is the head of the Restaurant Association of Metropolitan Washington, and a few other folks also that are involved in the food business. And so I've had a front row seat, frankly, on this conversation, and it's very complicated. There's many different options to weigh and many different considerations to take. Um, for us, our charge is basically not to second guess healthcare workers and the health department, but really to work on what would it look like in phases to reopen. And some of the
Right.
suggestions that are coming up are, fairly novel. Like, for instance, there's a conversation about allowing sidewalk cafes without necessarily having to go through a permitting process to be able to expand and be able to provide more seating outside because more people are probably going to want to sit outside than indoors for fear of the virus being transmitted easily inside. Um, uh, we would block possibly a lane or half a lane for traffic and make it pedestrian so that it allows for more seating on the sidewalks themselves. We would do things like maybe half occupancy at the beginning for restaurants to allow for more distancing. We would have some protocols and procedures in place on wearing masks and sanitation and all of these things. So there's many different considerations to take. I think all of them have to be addressed. And of course, we're not just restaurants, we're also bars and food trucks and other operations that provide food. And they each have their own specific needs and rules. And for many operators, they feel like if it's too restrictive, it may not be worth opening yet. We want to wait and see when things get a little bit better so we can have less restrictions and be able to open almost back to normal. That could be a very long ways from now. So it looks like we're going to have to go in phases. And those who can make it through a phase, they'll open. Those who don't want to, or for whatever reason are unable to, will have to wait for the next phase. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of considerations here. It's not just a one size fits all, unfortunately. And it's going to be a little bit of adjustment on all parts. And one of the things I think we all are considering is that there is a social pact that has to be made between the customers and between the employees, of course, that the customers will pledge that they will come in healthy, and that the employees will also pledge that they'll maintain the place in a healthy way. Those are things I
Yeah.
think that we as a community have to embrace and learn to trust one another at some level so that we can get through this. Because as we know, this virus is sometimes hidden. Sometimes it's hard to monitor. It's hard to tell who may be sick or maybe not. But for us, we want to make sure that not only our staff is healthy and safe, but also our customers are going to be equally healthy and safe.
No, I think you hit the nail on the head. There has to be a level of trust and comfort for number one, because customers to come back to stores and restaurants, and number two, employees to feel safe serving them in that capacity. So I'd like to transition a bit then to how has your experience been with some of these relief programs that are out there? I've heard feedback that many folks think they're let's say difficult to get access to. Have you experienced that? Do you think there are maybe other avenues that we could be exploring to help businesses that are impacted by the shutdown?
Yeah, I think it is complicated. It's not an easy thing, especially for small operators. That's what we're finding out. Smaller operators don't have a finance guy. They don't have someone who's able to put things together for them in an easy way that can, pass the restrictions and the guidelines that the SBA has put forward in order for someone to get the CARES Act loans or grants. And that's complicated because you have to have really good records, you have to maintain them, you have to have them for over a few years, you have to be able to then follow up on those. If you're going to have the loan forgiven, you can't just say, I'm not going to pay it. You got to have certain criteria to make that work. So it's difficult to say the least. But I think it's absolutely needed, some sort of assistance, especially for restaurants and hospitality industry, which arguably has been affected the most. And so we have put together a coalition of restaurant owners and operators to meet with some of the council members. We'll be meeting with Kenyon McDuffie this afternoon. In fact, we'll be meeting with Phil Mendelson at a later time to be able to talk about some options that the city can help with as well, because it's not just the federal government. We have a city also that has some resources that can help in that regard. And we're fortunate to be coming out of a very robust economy. So at least there's some reserves there. We're not just scraping bottom. We're able to at least make some things happen. So these microloans, for instance, that the mayor is putting out, those are also complicated and probably not enough out there for everybody to be able to partake. So there's a lot of issues, and I know these rules and regulations are changing almost daily, like the CARES Act, PPP, the payroll protection plan that they put out is changing every day. One day we're told that the forgiveness will be of people you bring back. Another day it's people you offer to come back that may not come back. Some employees are getting more in unemployment than they are getting if they were to come back to work. So why would somebody want to come back to work if they're getting more in their unemployment check?
It's crazy. And looking forward, hopefully as we move out of these shelter at home orders, how do you see restaurants changing long term? Do you think they will change long term? And if so, what shape does that take?
Well, I think there's obviously we have the short term, which is going to be quite drastic from what people have been used to. I think that will have to happen at least at some level. I think human beings have evolved for thousands of years to be social beings. We long for being together. We like to dance. We like to hug. We like to be next to each other. And that's not going to change. Our evolutionary process isn't going to stop because of 6, 8, 10 weeks, whatever, even 3 months. So we haven't evolved out of that joy of collectiveness, that joy of gathering. So I think that's going to probably come back. I think people are going to want to feel a little bit more confident in what to see and what to expect. At the very least, some really good treatment, and hopefully in the future, be able to get a vaccine that will at least take care of most of the issues that come out with this virus. So I think once you get to that level, which may be, who knows, could be months, could be years away, I think people will get back to some sort of collective gathering. And I think the people that are having the hardest time now is not just restaurants, but also bars, where
definitely.
People have to stand around and mill about and talk to friends and meet new people and things like that. And that's going to be really, really tough. So, there's so much that needs to be addressed here. And then walking around with masks is a whole different new game. And people coming into a restaurant, they have to eat. So the mask has to be taken off at some point. Where do you do that? Do people take the mask, put it on the table? Do they walk to the bathroom, have to put a mask on? Do they, that's a lot of issues that we
a lot of unknowns.
Yeah. So I think it's going to take time, and I think the adjustment will happen, piecemeal. Even though I'm on the Reopen DC committee or task force, there's going to be a lot of unexpected, unanswered questions that could come out of this, once we actually hit the ground running. So those things are going to have to be addressed in the moment, so to speak, and dealt with. And I know, for instance, just in watching the carryout and the way we do it, you have some people walk into our space and just don't have a mask on, even though we have a big sign saying, "Please make sure you have a mask. No entry without a mask." Then you stand in front of them. You don't want to sit and argue with them because it's carryout, right? You just hand them the bag and ask them to please
Yeah.
wear a mask next time, and it's over. But if somebody comes in and doesn't want to wear a mask, do you ask them to leave? If they refuse to leave, what happens?
Yeah.
I mean, people get very agitated when they're being forced to do something that they feel uncomfortable doing, and it's going to create a lot of interactions that may not be, expected or comfortable or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see how you kind of navigate that conversation. I mean, that's something I've thought about too. So the crystal ball is cloudy, but we appreciate you taking the time to speak with us today, Andy. We're all standing together in this as an industry, and I'm happy to hear about some of the steps that you're taking. So we'll let you go.
Thank you so much, Michael. Appreciate it.